Really warm welcome, afternoon everyone, to this bespoke session run by LexisNexis, which will focus on practical legal research using Lexis Plus and Lexis AI. AI, as we all know, is really disrupting the way in which we work at accelerating pace, including the way we approach and perform certain legal tasks, such as legal research. So we really hope that this session run by Brooke Game, who is also previously an AS member, will be insightful and I'm sure instrumental in allowing you to sharpen your legal research tools. So I understand, Brooke, you're going to be running a 20-minute demo on Lexis Plus, right? Followed by a 15-minute demo using Lexis AI. And then really importantly, we're all about interactivity and questions here. So there'll be a dedicated Q&A session at the end. I'm told that to the extent that you might have any questions, please pop those in the Q&A chat prompt, and Brooke will take those questions in due course. So on that note, I'll hand over to Brooke and hope you all enjoy the session.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks very much for joining our session. Just to give you a bit of background on me. So as Zoe mentioned, I was previously an AS member. I'm now a customer success manager here at Lexis. So essentially my role is training. I look after the strategic accounts. So those are the kind of large law, the big law firms in London and nearby. And I'm training everyone in those firms, so from trainees up to partners, on using Lexis Plus. And I essentially am going to be doing the same thing with you guys this afternoon. So we're going to start by just looking at the Lexis Plus platform for about 20 minutes or so. And then we're also going to have the chance to see the AI assistant. If you do have any questions at all, please do feel free to pop those in the Q&A function as I'm going. But there is also some time at the end for us to have a little bit more of a sort of in-depth Q&A, so we can also do that too. But let me share my screen with you and we can get straight into it. Okay. All right. So you should now hopefully be able to see my screen. This is the Lexis Plus platform, and I'm just going to sort of walk you through some of the main navigation and some tips and tricks in terms of legal research today. I want to start by just highlighting for you some sort of key resources, so things like books and journals, some of the key ones that are really helpful, not just sort of in your studies at the moment, but also kind of further afield. So when you're sort of accessing the sources and the books on Lexis Plus, to do this, you just need to scroll down. And what you'll see is we have a My Sources tab. Now, below this, you do have something called My Pinned Sources, which really is just another way of saying your own virtual bookshelf. Now, the way it works is that you'll often get default texts here, something like Holsbury's or some of the case overviews. But there are some additional text to what's listed. So what you can actually do here is you can go into View All Sources to be able to see a full view of the sources that Lexis offers. And I wanted to do this just because there are a couple of texts that I think are just really useful to be aware of. And I wanted to kind of show you how they work. So the first one is some journals. So you may be kind of familiar with the term commercial awareness. This is something that I'm sure you're hearing all the time. Lexis has a number of resources that are sort of available to support building on your commercial awareness, building on your current awareness. And one of the ways of doing this is the journals that Lexis offers. So what you can do is we have got a content filter here on the left where you can go into books and journals, and then you can filter this further to journals. And what you'll then be able to see is all of the journals that Lexis offers on the platform. And there's loads and loads of journals in here that are incredibly useful from that commercial awareness perspective. There's lots and lots of different sort of practice areas. You've got criminal ones, you've got family ones, civil, loads and loads of different practice areas in there. These particular journals are updated all the time, so you can kind of use these as and when they are becoming available. Now, there's one journal in particular that I did just want to highlight for you, which is the New Law Journal. Some of you may well have seen this before. If not, then it's this one here, the New Law Journal. This one is updated all the time. In fact, if you do click into the information button, you'll be able to see that actually this is a weekly journal. So every single week, there are new articles that come out within this particular journal, centered around the latest sort of legal developments in case law, legislation, practice, and also procedure. So it's a really good way of seeing what's currently going on within the legal world, using this as maybe some support to kind of think about essay writing, dissertations. This is a good place to use, not just for kind of current and commercial awareness, but as a place to kind of get ideas for courseworks as well. So I just really wanted to highlight that text for you. And I'm actually just going to really quickly hop into it, just so that I can show you what that kind of looks like. So the way that all the books work on Lexis is you can go in and search. If there's a particular sort of topic area that you're interested in, that you want to kind of see some journal articles on, you could just type this in. You can type your keywords in, type a topic area in, and it will bring back those articles that discuss that within this particular journal. Or you could browse it. So you'll get given a table of contents. All the books work in this exact same way. So it's not just for the journal. But let's say if I wanted to see the most recent articles, I can go into that 2025 volume. I can use that arrow to expand. I can go into the June issue. And then I can open up articles, and you can see these are all of the recent articles that have been published within this journal. So you can see what is it that's sort of currently going on or being spoken about in the sort of legal news world at the moment. So you can see we've got a bit on family, AI, of course, crime, and a couple of others in there as well. So just really wanted to highlight that particular journal for you, and other journals and those sorts of resources that Lexis offers from a sort of commercial awareness perspective. They are really nice to be aware of and how to kind of use them. Now, I'm going to hop back onto the homepage. It's only a quick demo today, so I don't have time to sort of take you through some of those other sources. But the other one that I think is just worth knowing about is that Holsbury's text. This is a particular text here that covers all of the laws of England and will give you some guidance and commentary on how those laws apply. They'll often give you links to kind of cases in those particular areas as well. So that's also just a really nice text to be aware of. So let's actually move into running some legal research now. And I'm going to start by doing a keyword search with you guys. So keyword searching is probably the majority of what you'll be doing within the Lexis Plus platform, whether it's for, legal research from an academic point of view, or whether it's once you're sort of in practice, you'll still be doing this. So I'm going to go in and just do a keyword search with you guys, and I'm just going to keep it very topical, and we're just going to kind of focus on artificial intelligence and AI. It's something that's extremely kind of popular, and is something that, as mentioned at the beginning, is talked about and we're using a lot more. So I think if we do some keyword searches on that, it's just quite topical. And of course, we're going to see the AI as well. So I am going to go in here and I'm going to just search for artificial intelligence. Now, you may notice that I have got here some quotation marks around artificial intelligence. This is a command that works on Google, it works on emails, it works on other platforms, so you might be familiar with this. If not, it's essentially a phrase locking command. So anytime you want to tell the search to ensure that more than one word is searched as a phrase, this is a command that you can use. And it's one that's really, really useful to be aware of, because it means that you can have, something like artificial intelligence that it may separate into two sort of searches, just looking at artificial and just looking at intelligence. You can kind of stop the search from giving you maybe a relevant result by using that phrase locking command. So that's a really nice one to be aware of. Now, I want to go a little bit deeper than artificial intelligence, and I want to find some content here that sort of discusses maybe copyright and infringement to do with artificial intelligence. So I'm going to then use another command, and I'm just going to type in there and. I'm just for now going to do copyright. So this command here, and, pretty much is kind of what it says on the tin there. It's allowing you to have more than one keyword, or even more than one phrase you could have there. It's just another command that can be used if you want to search for more than one word, to ensure that it's definitely going to search for both of those for you. These commands that I'm kind of touching on here are They're called Boolean connectors. It's Boolean commands, Boolean connectors. Again, you may well be familiar with this. There's lots more than this that do work on the platform. We don't really have time to sort of go into those today, but I did want to just point out these two for you guys. If you do want to kind of learn about the advanced searching and commands and connectors and Boolean searching in a little bit more detail, just know that you can go into advanced search at the bottom here, and there is actually a list of all the commands that work on Lexis. So if that is something you want to develop and improve, then that is an option for you. But for now, just to kind of highlight the quotation ones for phrase locking and that and command if you want, more than one keyword there. So let's do a quick search. Now, once you search on Lexis, you do get lots of extra filters on the results page that you can continue to use and kind of refine down by. So on the left, you can see we've got our content sets. This is where I'd be able to decide if I want case law, if I want the law on this, maybe I want some books and journals. And what you'll notice is that when you do click onto these, they do expand to secondary filters. So you'll always have the option to further refine that down. Couple of extra filters here, including practice areas and topics. So you can go in and filter by those. And you can also filter by source. So it's like those books and those journals that we saw before, but it's the ability to search multiple. If you do search for legislation and cases, you do also get some extra filters here, including a timeline option if you wanted to kind of filter by time frame or particular years. And then with our cases, you can filter by jurisdiction and also specific courts within jurisdiction. So that's quite a nice one. As well as all of these filters here, we do also have a search engine on the left that allows you to search within those results that are already existing. So if I at any point decided that as well as artificial intelligence and copyright, maybe I'd want to go in and add something else, I'd have the option to be able to do that. So I might decide to go in here and type infringement. And then once you add that on, it's going to search within those results that were existing. It will put it at the top for us. We can edit that, we can delete that, and it doesn't affect our original search. So it's just another way of refining down those layers and getting to the content as quickly as possible. So that's just kind of a quick run through of keyword searching, a little bit on the kind of advanced connectors and those kind of post-search filters that you can use to narrow that down by. Does anybody have any questions on that before I move into some specific content? Double check. Can't see anything. Okay. So I am now just going to quickly hop into a case with you guys and also some legislation. And then we're going to be moving into our AI assistant. So to do this, I'm just going to go back onto my home page. So the Lexis logo there is our home button. So that will always bring us back to the main search engine. So if you ever need to get back there, you can use the logo for that. Now, as well as sort of keyword searching, topic searching, you probably will also be carrying out legal research where you're needing to find specific content, whether it's a particular act or a particular case where you've got the name or the citation. So I'm going to do that with you guys, just so you can kind of see that as well as the, sort of keyword searches that we just did. So let's start by looking at a case, and I'm going to do the good old Donahue versus Stevenson, which every law student will know about. If you haven't come across this yet, you definitely will. It's a really sort of landmark negligence case. So I'm just going to show you this one. Now, because I know that this is a case, with something like this where you already know that, I am going to actually use the filter on the right to just pre-select that that's what I want to find. Just makes it a little bit quicker, means I can get straight to it. And we can see at the top of my screen is my exact case that I'm looking for. I did already sort of mention those other filters that you'll get when looking at cases. And because I did pre-select that, you can see that that does then appear. So I am going to hop into this case with you guys. I just wanted to point out a couple of features within the cases themselves. So the way that it works on Lexis is that when you're looking at case law, you're going to get more than one format of that particular case, and you'll see those sitting across the top. It just means that it's really easy for you to switch between the formats of overview, judgment, law report. It's all in the one space for you. When you're looking at cases on Lexis, the overviews are the default, and the overviews are incredibly useful to be able to find multiple cases on the same topic area. So as I said, Donahue versus Stevenson here is a negligence case. If you haven't read it before, essentially it's all around a lady that had a ginger beer bottle that she was drinking and which she found a snail in. So it's all very interesting. It's all around negligence and duty of care. But if you want to sort of go and find other cases on that particular area, maybe if you were doing a coursework piece, maybe for an exam, then the overviews are a really nice way of finding other cases, because as you can see, it gives us cases referring to this case. So that means other cases that have used this decision in their own judgment to make their own decision. So they've used the sort of teachings and they've used the judgment here. You can also use these to find cases referred to as well. So you get both cases considered by and cases referred by. And this one, there's loads and loads and loads because it is such a landmark case, but you can kind of see how easy that is to see lots and lots of other cases on the same sort of topic area. The other thing that I did just want to mention with the cases are the status indicators. So that's these little symbols that you'll see next to all of our case law. This is essentially an indicator that is going to tell you whether it's good or bad case law to rely upon. It's kind of like, was the decision that was given in that case a decision that is now followed with other sort of subsequent cases? Or was it a decision that actually was challenged, maybe it was appealed, and it now sort of doesn't stand? So it's a really good way of seeing whether it's good or bad case law. Now, you don't have to remember the symbols whenever you're in a case. All you'd need to do is just click onto that information tab on the right, and there is a button here that says treatment information. So this will tell you what those symbols mean. So you don't need to memorize them. They're always on the case, but it's sort of just worth knowing where they are. If you do come across one that you're not sure on, you can kind of read about it. In general, you're kind of wanting to find those positive ones because that's a good kind of case to rely upon if you're using it in, courseworks or essays or exams. Of course, if you want one to maybe kind of disprove something, then the negative ones might also be relevant as well. So those are just a couple of the kind of key case features. Does anybody have any questions on that? Is that all okay with everybody? Yeah. Perfect. Now, we're nearly at sort of the end of this particular demo, and then we're going to move into AI. But I did just want to highlight some of the legislation features before we do that. So let's actually go in and look at some legislation together. And I'm going to just show you the Equality Act. So I'm just going to type that in. Now, when you're looking at legislation, you may be wanting to find the full act, or you might actually be needing individual sections of acts. So there's a couple of ways you can do it. You can leave it as the full act as I have here, or you can be a little bit more particular and you can specify a section. And to do that, you just need to write S and then the number, and that will take you to a specific section of an act. So if you want to be a little bit more particular, you have the option to do that. I'm just going to go into the full act for a moment, and I'm going to use that legislation filter again for us. You'll be able to see that it's going to bring up the full act for me at the top of the screen. Now, the full act you can actually navigate in two ways. You could go into the table of contents at the bottom, which actually works the same as the book. So with the new law journal that we looked at, it works in exactly the same way if you'd prefer to do that. Or you could just click into the full act. So if I click into that, and then what you'll get is the table of contents for the app. So you can see all of the different sections here. I'm going to go into an individual section with you guys, just so I can highlight those features. I'm just going to choose one at random. Let's just maybe try this one. And then I wanted to just kind of highlight some of the key features within the actual legislation. So when you're looking at individual sections, we give you these status indicators. They're a little bit like traffic lights. So they're going to let you know whether that section you're looking at is in force or not. This one is, but you may come across red, which means it's not in force anymore. Or you might come across a yellow. You might have spotted that when we looked at the full act, which means partly in force. That just means some sections are, some sections aren't. But they are always there and they tell you. If something is kind of partly in force, or maybe it's no longer in force, then you're going to be wanting to kind of see what's happened. And that's where you can view the amendments. Now, this particular section I chose actually doesn't have any amendments. So I might just really quickly use that table of contents on the left just to move through to a section that's maybe had some changes, just so you can see what that looks like. So let's try this one. There we are. And you can actually see here that this one is partly in force. So that means some of this is and some of this isn't. Now, when you want to view the amendments, all you need to do is either scroll to the bottom and you'll see a list of those amendments, or you can turn on the little show changes toggle on the top. If you just switch that on, it will highlight for you what those amendments are. And if you click into this, it will tell you the same information that's listed at the bottom. It's just a slightly different view. So it depends how you prefer to see this. It's the same information, but it's just another way of doing that. So actually, it looks like this was inserted by a statutory instrument in 2023, which is why we've got those amendments and changes. So you can see that there. You can, of course, switch that off. This one actually looks like there are some upcoming amendments. So it looks like there's some changes coming to this section, which if that is happening, you'll get this little sort of caution error, which you can click into, and it will tell you what those upcoming amendments or sort of suggested changes are. So you can see that it's a regulation from this year. It's a statutory instrument that's going to be coming in that's going to have some effect on this. So you'll also get that. And just lastly, I did just also want to highlight here the timeline. So with this particular section, the Equality Act was enacted in 2010, but based on those amendments for this section, the current version for this section is actually 2024. So when there has been amendments, it will automatically default you to the version that's currently in force. And you can see it's done that for us here. It's given us current, which is 2024, based on those amendments. That's done automatically, but I did just want to highlight that this is a timeline. So you can expand that and you can kind of go back to different points across that timeline, back to the original if you would prefer to. So you do have that as an option as well. All right. So that really does sort of bring the Lexis Plus demo to a close. I am going to move into the AI demo with you guys, but I did just want to sort of check and confirm that that was sort of useful, that you don't have any questions on that, that all makes sense before we go into the AI assistant. Just checking that there's nothing in the Q&A. I think we're all good. Okay, well, if anybody does think of anything or you do want to go into anything else in a little bit more detail, we will have some time at the end for us to do that. So if you want to have a little think of maybe it's something else that you want to see, maybe the advanced search connectors or something like that, at the end there'll be a bit of time so we can do that if you need. Great, so let's now go in and have a little look at our AI assistant. Now, the AI assistant is a pretty new addition to Lexis Plus. I think this has now been out and live for about a year. And the AI assistant works within the Lexis Plus environment. So if you have access to AI, you see it as an extra option here. You can see on the left, we've got our AI assistant. There is also an AI pop-out on the right here, which works on top of the sort of research that you might already be doing or carrying out. So kind of like the research we've just been doing this afternoon. If at any point I kind of decided that I wanted to then use my AI assistant, I could use this as an option to sort of do a side-by-side task. So for example, something like that Donahue versus Stevenson case, if I was in a rush and I didn't maybe have time to read that full judgment, I could open this and I could go in and summarize a case, and I could ask it to summarize Donahue versus Stevenson for me. So that's one sort of use case for this. I am going to go into this in much more detail so you can see that, but just to kind of give you an idea of how you might use that in amongst the research that you're already sort of carrying out. So let's actually go into the AI assistant just so it's slightly larger on the screen, but the use cases, whether it's from the AI assistant or the pop-out, is exactly the same. So I'm just going to zoom out slightly just so you can see that better on the screen. So if you hadn't seen this or heard about the AI assistant before, it's essentially an AI assistant that is specifically for the legal market. So it's not the same as maybe other AI products that you've used before, something like Copilot or GPT, because it's specific for the legal market. And what that means is that it's only ever using trusted Lexis content to generate responses. It doesn't go and use the web or anything like that, like maybe GPT or Copilot do. It's only using that Lexis material that you'd already have been using for sort of legal research tasks anyway. And you can see it does list them for you at the bottom. So you've got here cases, legislation, practical guidance, and books. So those are the materials, the proprietary Lexis content that it uses in generating responses. You'll see as I go into this as well, that at every opportunity, so once it gives you an output, it gives you something called a linked legal citation. So essentially, it's a live link that you can click into the material that has been used for you to kind of verify or use as a starting point into additional materials. So you have always got that option to check the information for yourself as well. The AI assistant does offer 4 use cases, and you can see those sitting across the screen. Ask a legal question, generate a draft, summarize a case, and then upload to summarize or ask a question are the 4 use cases for the AI assistant. I have got a bit of a sort of scenario and a bit of a prompt, or a couple of prompts rather, that I wanted to kind of show you so that you can see how this would work. If you're not familiar with the term prompt, it is essentially just the question that you put into an AI tool. So prompting is really just another way of sort of saying question. It's just what you put in to get an output. But I mention it because the better that you get at prompting, the better outputs you receive. And it's true for all AI systems, but I do like to just highlight that with ours. So let's actually show you how this works. So I'm going to just start by showing you this ask a legal question function. Now, I actually have quite an in-depth sort of situation, scenario, kind of pretend that we can have a little look at. So the AI assistant itself, you can, of course, use for a number of research tasks and kind of academic tasks, like being able to summarize a case. But there's also lots and lots of opportunities to use this in practice. And I wanted to show you this from more of an in practice perspective, so you can kind of see how that would work. But again, this sort of scenario that I'm about to show you, you could also have received in like a coursework or an exam or something. So you can kind of see how the AI assistant would work to approach that. So I'm just going to grab my prompt here so you can see, and I'm just going to put that into the tool. So my client, a care assistant at Green Meadows Nursing Home, was dismissed from her position after refusing to accept a COVID-19 vaccine. My client had worked at the nursing home for 5 years and had an exemplary record. She refused the vaccine due to personal health concerns and a belief that it was not safe for her. Under what grounds can she file for unfair dismissal? If you're not familiar with the term unfair dismissal, essentially if somebody gets fired from their job and they don't believe that that firing was fair, maybe they think they didn't do anything wrong, they don't think there was grounds for it, then there's something called unfair dismissal that you can file for and go to court for. So that's the situation that we have here. We've got a client that's sort of come through. This is the situation, and we need to kind of understand what the legal grounds for this is. Does she have a basis? Is this something that we can help her with? And I've chosen something like this because, I mean, it's quite topical. It's a little bit more interesting than maybe like corporate or contract law. So you can kind of see how you would use this. Now, the main prompt here is under what grounds can she file for unfair dismissal? The rest of this is just kind of setting the scene, giving the background. But I've done this so that you can see how specific you can actually be when you're prompting with this AI assistant. And it's something that I do encourage to be as specific as you can so that you can get the best output. So really, we need to understand what those grounds are. So I'm going to put that into the tool now. Now, the way that it works, the AI assistant analyzes our query, analyzes the intent behind our prompt, and will then look across all of the Lexis material to produce an answer. And you'll see it's generating that for us, searching across primary sources, secondary sources, and then retrieving actual authoritative results. So it's looking across that Lexis content that I mentioned to you a moment ago. Here you can see the answer has come through. I mean, that literally took a couple of seconds. So you can see it's incredibly fast, really, really quick. And you can start to then see those live links. So it's these that you can actually click into to go into anything that it's actually suggested as sort of useful material. And you'll see at the bottom that it also does list those for you. And if you click into view related, you can see all sorts of other materials surrounding that sort of specific topic or area if you wanted to do some further research. Just to show you this, if I actually click into one of those live links, it's going to take me into the typical Lexis environment. This one is actually a case. So you can see it's taken us in to that same sort of view that we saw on Donahue versus Stevenson. So it's really, really fast. It's all interlinked within that Lexis material, and you can really use this to kind of move between documents or even as a starting point. So now we understand what those grounds are and whether this is something we might want to take on. But we probably, if you're in practice, you're going to need to go into this in a little bit more detail and kind of pull out some key elements here. So actually in here, it starts talking about the Human Rights Act, the European sort of court within this. So we might now maybe go in and ask a follow-up question. So what you can do is you have actually got the option to ask up to 10 follow-up questions from your original prompt. So the way to think about it is if you're having a conversation. Maybe you're having a conversation with a colleague, maybe you're having a conversation with a supervisor, a partner, maybe somebody on your course. So this is the sort of thing that you can do. You can have that back and forth. You can ask follow-up questions. So I might now go in and say, let me just grab it. What sections of the Human Rights Act 1998 would apply and what do they say? So as I said, you can then go in and ask up to 10 follow-ups. And actually, you don't have to be as specific when it comes to those follow-up prompts, because up to the 10, it knows that this is all directly in relation to the original prompt that we started with. And you might be able to see there it's a little bit small, but actually it's reworded that to specifically be in relation to the COVID-19 vaccine and an unfair dismissal. So you can be a little bit more vague with those follow-up questions. It can just be like a bit of an informal chat, a bit of an informal conversation. because it will know that it's still in relation to our original prompt. Again, you can see how quickly that's come through. We've got our live links available for us that we can click into, and also see the extra materials linked for us as well. Now, we can now kind of go in and ask many more questions if we want to. We can go in and ask those extra follow-up prompts. What I want to do is sort of go and show you a slightly different use case here. So at the beginning, you'll remember those that were listed across the screen. And one of those was the ability to summarize a case. Now, you can, of course, go in and start a new conversation and go to summarize a case and put in a case name or citation you'd like a summary of. But I want to show you how it works when you're already having that conversation. You're already asking those questions. So here, it's actually talking about this specific case. And this is the same case that it spoke about in our previous response. So I might now decide to get a summary of that case to sort of aid with my research. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to ask that sort of additional follow-up prompt. And I'm going to say, what was the decision in that particular case? So I can get a bit of a summary, bit of an understanding from the AI assistant, rather than having to go in and kind of read that judgment for myself. And the way that this will come through is going to be the same as how those summaries work. So you'll be able to see how it structures it. But just to sort of point out, if you're going in to using summarize a case, the output that you'll see is the same. So let me just give that a quick second to come through. Now, actually what's happened here is it hasn't been able to do it because I haven't included the citation. I actually just included the party names. And this is, I guess, a bit of a teaching point, that the way that the AI works is that when you're asking it for case summaries, you do actually need to include the citation so that it can give you the summary of the exact one that you want. So what I could do is I can go back up to my live links. I can hop into the case from here, and I can grab the actual citation, which this is actually at the top here. So I can just, let's do it from here instead. There we go. I can just copy and paste the citation. I can use that back button to come back into my AI, and I can ask it again now that I've got the citation. So I'm just going to put that on, and then I'm just going to copy and paste our original prompt there. Now I can ask what the decision was with the citation, and then hopefully you'll be able to see the output. As I said, again, this summary that you'll get is the same as how it works under the summarizing a case option. It looks like it's working now. You can see it's found the actual case because we put that on. So the way the case summaries work is it splits it into really nice different areas, things like key legal findings, material facts, the law, submissions of the parties, court rationale, and then the decision. And this is actually the question that I asked. I wanted to understand what the decision actually was. So you can see, again, extremely fast, really, really nice way of getting to a quick, easy summary of particular cases that if you'd read the lengthy judgment of, it would have taken you a little while. So that's sort of another use case for this. You don't have to necessarily move across into summarizing a case to do it. You can do it from the Ask a Legal Question, but it's just another sort of option in how the AI works. Now, there is also another use case, which is that draft functionality, which again, I could go in and start a new conversation for to show you, but I wanted to show you now that we've had this back and forth and we're building up a bit of a case here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go in and ask it to draft something for me now that I've got all of these outputs to go back to my client with. Now, you might notice that there is an option here that suggests to draft a research note. So I could use that and it would draft me a research note for me to use maybe in my coursework piece if this is what I was using it for, or in practice to kind of give to my client or to my supervisors. But I want to go a little step further than this and get some additional information. So I'm actually going to ask it to draft me an email to my client explaining the situation, the legal background, and then suggest next steps for us to take this case forward for unfair dismissal. I'm going to go even further than that and suggest a meeting next week, Wednesday, to discuss. And then I've been specific to the tone that I want, which is firm but friendly. So you can be very, very specific with this. You can manipulate the tone. You can kind of say how lengthy you want it, how short you want that. And in terms of the draft functionalities, it can draft research notes, emails, letters, and also clauses as well. So clauses within contracts, it can draft. But I've done it from the conversation that we're having, so you can kind of see the steps you would take, all those different use cases to the AI to build up this really nice case situation for us. And again, you can see that it has now come through. We've got our email that we can send over to our client. We've set out the circumstances that we've just discovered. We've sort of said, this is what we need to do to move forward. And this is what I'm suggesting in terms of meeting. And again, those live links will also be present for us. I could go in and change this. I could ask it to be more friendly. I could ask it to be shortened, simplified. You can go in and keep asking those additional questions and sort of changing the draft functionalities as well. So that is kind of the sort of use case that I did just want to show you so that you can see how you can use it from a sort of in practice perspective and how you can use the different use cases to build that up. So even though we've done it all from that Ask a Legal Question feature, I've still sort of shown that ask a legal question, asking the follow-ups. We've seen the ability that it has to generate drafts, and we've also seen the ability to summarize cases as well. And again, just to reiterate, if I go into that generating a draft, it's these 5 that it can do for you. We chose an email today, but those are the ones it also does. Now, just lastly, before we can have a little bit of a Q&A, I did just want to quickly highlight this last use case, which essentially is the same sort of principles that we saw from that task, but it's the ability to apply those to your own documents. So what this use case allows you to do is upload 10 of your own files, which you could ask the AI assistant to summarize on your behalf, or you could ask a specific question against the documents that you've uploaded. You don't have to necessarily kind of upload files itself. You can also enter text, so you can copy and paste. You can kind of grab something from an email and do it in that same way. But as I said, you just essentially pop them in. You can ask it to summarize, or you can ask a question against. Now, I don't have lots and lots of sort of legal documents that I could put on to show you because I'm obviously not in practice. But just to kind of give you a bit of an example, I have a demo document that I can just show you so you can see how it would work. So if I just quickly grab these Lexis AI, and the examples here are like a share purchase agreement. So it's a bit of a boring sort of corporate example, but these are just the demo ones I have so you can see. Both these documents are actually over 30 pages long. So they're really quite lengthy documents. These are obviously just 2, but you can upload up to 10 of these. So you can see you can really upload quite a lot of content here and save a lot of time. Now I can go in and ask it to summarize those, or I can go one step further and ask a specific query. So I could go in and say, what are the differences in a particular clause or a particular provision? So I'm going to ask about the warranties clause. What are the differences in warranties provision? And it's then going to work in the same way as those other use cases, but it's then working across that content that I've uploaded. So my own materials, essentially. But it does exactly the same thing. I could have asked it to summarize those and it would give me the summary. But I did that ask the question one. And you can see that that already has come through, which if you think about kind of trawling through both of those nearly 40-page documents yourself to try and figure out what the differences is in that one little warranties clause, you can see just incredible how quickly it is and how easy it is as well. So we've got one example, the other example, and then our differences at the bottom. Just a quick note on the sort of security and privacy elements to this one. So the way it works is that when you upload content, it's encrypted, private to you, private to the session. We don't use any sort of documents to train the model, and it doesn't even get ingested into that. So there's some really key security and privacy elements that are in place for that use case. So that kind of does bring the demo to a close, both on the Lexis Plus platform and also on the Lexis Plus AI. Now we have got just shy of 15 minutes that we can now go into a little bit more of a Q&A. So if you haven't already, then please do pop any questions that you might have into the Q&A function, and we can just spend a little bit of time going through those. And I can see some emojis coming through, some hearts, some smiley faces. So thanks very much for that. So let me go in and see what we've got in the Q&A. So I think we had a previous question asking about the AI summarizing a case and what that looks like. Hopefully now that has already been answered and you can see what that looks like. How would you go about dealing with the scenario without AI? Yeah, that's a really good question, actually. So you would approach this more as a keyword search. It's going to be a little bit more like how we did the sort of general legal research keyword searching content. So what I probably would do is maybe run a keyword search for something like unfair dismissal as a starting point, pop it in quotation marks like we learned, and then kind of go from there. We know that it's unfair dismissal. We know that it's to do with a nurse. We know that it's to do with COVID-19. So we probably would then be using the kind of search within results option, maybe adding on COVID-19 as an extra filter, maybe having a little look at filtering to case law to see if there's any other cases that exist in that particular field, and kind of working our way from there. You might have also noticed that in that information tab where I highlighted the treatment indicators, actually in there is also a option to see additional information. So you could go into a case and you could then use that to find related content, maybe the law, and then it would likely kind of link you into the Human Rights Act and everything that kind of goes alongside it. So you would approach it in a bit of a similar way, but rather than prompting, you just need to kind of change those prompts into more of a keyword search, and it would be about using those filters that we looked at today to narrow it down. So hopefully that answers your question. Yeah, so I can see a question from Sophie about whether we use the client data to train the model. Hopefully I did already answer that, but again, just to sort of reiterate, any client data, any information at all that you're inputting is not used to train the model. Nothing gets ingested. In fact, we have a separate system that's called human legal experts in the loop. These are essentially a team of PSLs or sort of, so that's like professional support lawyer, who are the guys that sort of make the content for Lexis. We have a similar sort of team for our AI system that will sit in the background, and they're testing the machine all the time. They're the ones sort of inputting information that is trained and that it learns from, but it doesn't do that from any customer information or anything that you upload. So hopefully that answers that one. Okay, so we have a question about how I think that our Lexis AI maybe stands out from other legal AI tools in the market. I guess I probably would go back to that it's grounded in our Lexis legal content. So at every point, as you've seen, you always have those options to link into the actual material. And we have, loads and loads of proprietary content. You have access to the books, the resources that we have the licenses for. The AI also uses those. So you have a lot of really key content that it uses in sort of generating those. I also think because it's kind of grounded within Lexis Plus, it means that it's really easy for you to be integrated into additional material and move across and continue your research without having to go to lots of different platforms to kind of build that up. So it's all in one space, it's all fully integrated, and it's really, really easy for you to move between that material. Okay, so how would you go about finding a case or legislation if you just have the facts or maybe some particular circumstances not using the AI function? So again, this is going to be going back to keyword searching. So for example, if I needed to find a case on unfair dismissal and COVID-19, then I would just be doing a keyword search for unfair dismissal or whatever the topic area or circumstances that I have available. And then you're going to want to use that filter on the left to go to cases. And that will bring up a list of all the cases that specifically discuss that particular topic or those particular facts or circumstances that you have. So it's just a keyword search that you do, but you'd be wanting to filter to either cases or the law to find it in that way. Okay. So I have a question about whether if you was to copy and paste a paragraph from the results Lexis provides, would it count as plagiarism? So my understanding is that all sorts of unis and academics have their own internal AI situations and how they can kind of use them and whether they can or can't be used. If you do copy and paste anything from the AI assistant, I tend to just kind of recommend stating when it's actually been used and that you had used the AI assistant in order to get the response. If you're using those live link citations to get into some material, if you use that in coursework, you'd be wanting to cite that anyway. If you're using a book, if you're using a case, you'd be citing it. So it's the same sort of thing. You'd be just wanting to cite that you've used it, where you've got that information from, and then cite maybe those additional materials that you've moved across into as well. And then final question here about vacation schemes at law firms and finding out whether or not they have subscribed to Lexis Plus AI. Unfortunately, it's not really something you can find out. It's not sort of, widely available in that way. But what I probably would suggest is reaching out to the firm that you have those vacation schemes with, asking them if they do subscribe to the AI assistant. Lots and lots of firms do, and more are kind of taking this on board. So I probably would just suggest when you're going into a vacation scheme to just ask them if it's something that they have, or if not, asking them if it's something that they're maybe wanting to consider. But if they do have it, then you might see me again because I'll probably be doing the training on it in your vacation schemes. So just in the last couple of minutes, does anybody else have any other questions that I can help with? Anything else you'd like to see? Has that been helpful? Was that useful for you guys? The AI, being able to see that, and also kind of having a little look at some of those legal research tips. Did anybody learn anything new? Great. Well, if there is nothing else, then I am happy to give you guys back 5 minutes or so. Once again, thanks so much for joining. I really hope that was helpful for you guys. And I hope you all have a lovely Friday afternoon and a lovely weekend. And hopefully I will see some of you guys at some point soon, whether it's through this or in practice at some point. Thanks, guys.